Jefferson began the Declaration with, "When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation." So what Jefferson's doing in the Declaration of Independence is he's given the reasons why the colonies are declaring their independence from Great Britain. Jefferson said that the British government violated the rights of the colonists and that all men have unalienable rights. These are rights that cannot be taken away. So here's a passage from the Declaration where Jefferson's discussing those inalienable rights. He says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Jefferson also said, "To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed." Now the phrase consent of the governed means permission of the people. So you can think of it like this. The people give the permission to the government to make decisions for them. Consent of the governed, permission of the people. Jefferson also said that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute a new government. So if you don't like what the government's doing, it's your right to change it, or in some cases, completely change it through revolution. In the Declaration of Independence, Jefferson listed grievances, which are complaints, against King George III. These were the reasons why the colonies were breaking away from England. So in the Declaration of Independence, Jefferson listed grievances, which are complaints, against the British King, King George III, giving the reasons why the colonies were breaking away from England. It was stated that the king imposed taxes without the consent or permission of the colonist. Remember the expression that came from British taxation? No taxation without representation. Jefferson also said he made the military superior to the civil government. What that meant was that the military back then had more authority than the governments in the colonies. Now that's completely opposite of the way it is today. Today, the national government has more authority than the military. Jefferson also said he refused to address colonial petitions for the redress of grievances. The word petitions means to request something, and what Jefferson was referring to was the olive branch petition that the colonists sent King George III, and he rejected. Jefferson also said he deprived the colonists the right to a trial by jury. Now what a trial by jury is that you have the right to have your case heard by a jury of your peers, which are people, and that jury decides if you're guilty or not guilty. Jefferson also said of King George III, he protected his soldiers against trial for murders of colonists. So for example, the Boston Massacre, Jefferson saying that when these guys killed the citizens of Boston, King George III did not do anything about it. He quartered large number of soldiers against the colonists. Of course, Jefferson's referring to the Quartering Act, in which British soldiers were housed in the homes of colonists, and the colonists had to pay for the British soldiers being in their own homes. He dissolved the colonist representative assemblies. What that means is Representative governments like the Virginia House of Burgesses were shut down by the British government. For transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. And what that means is that the colonists were put on trial for made-up charges and then sent to England to face a British judge where they'll probably be found guilty. Jefferson also said of King George III, he waged war against the colonists. And of course, he's talking about the American Revolution. Here's the British Redcoats, and here's Washington's Continental Army. And to wrap up the Declaration, Jefferson stated, "And for the support of this Declaration, with a firm alliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." So all Jefferson's saying is, we're all in this together. But not everyone was happy with the Declaration of Independence. Women like Abigail Adams complained it said nothing about their rights. And here you see a picture of Abigail Adams, who was one of the early pioneers in the women's rights movement. More importantly, the document said nothing about slavery. Some felt it went against the meaning of the Declaration. Now, when you look at this passage here, you see the part that many of these people referenced. Jefferson said, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." And people's argument is that if all men are created equal, how can there be slavery? Jefferson actually addressed slavery in the Declaration, but it was removed because conflicting viewpoints might prevent everyone's agreement. So the issue of slavery was not included in the document. People from the North were worried that New England merchants, who actually benefited from slavery, would be offended. People in the North also felt it was unfair to blame the king for all of slavery. People in the South feared it might lead to demands to free the slaves, and Southern farms depended on slave labor. So Jefferson just thought it best not to include this part in the Declaration. To review, Thomas Jefferson was the primary author of the Declaration of Independence. It was signed on July 4, 1776. It announced to the world the colonies were declaring their independence and gave their reasons for doing so. The Declaration of Independence has had a major impact on the history of the world. It has influenced and inspired many movements for freedom, most notably the French Revolution. Now, if you see this passage from the French Revolution, you can see its content is similar to that of the Declaration. It reads, "Men are born and remain free and equal in rights. Social distinction may be founded only upon the general good." Finally, the Declaration of Independence is in large part a summary of what the Bill of Rights found in the U.S. Constitution stands for. Many unalienable rights protected in the Bill of Rights are protected because of grievances found in the Declaration. So when we study the Constitution in here, and in particular the Bill of Rights, you will see a lot of the grievances that Jefferson put in the Declaration referenced in why unalienable rights were put into the Constitution.